You're hired. Don't close this. Don't look away. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't a story. It's your new job description. And by the time I'm done talking, you're going to understand exactly what you signed up for. You're going to feel the weight of 1,200 feet of rock and earth pressing down on your chest. You're going to smell the coal dust in the back of your throat. And somewhere, deep in the part of your brain that's still animal, still prey, you're going to feel something watching you from the dark. Welcome to your first day underground. Your orientation starts now. Let's begin with the basics. The basics of what you are now. You are a gas detection technician for the Blackwater No. 9 coal mine, Mingo County, West Virginia. That's your title. That's what it says on the paper. But what you actually are, what you actually do every single shift is crawl. You crawl through tunnels that were never meant for human beings. Tunnels bored through ancient stone by machines that don't care about the shape of a man. You crawl on your hands and knees, sometimes on your belly like something that lives under a rock, through passages so narrow that if you extend both arms, your elbows touch both walls. The ceiling will sometimes drop so low that your hard hat scrapes against the rock with every movement forward. Scrape, scrape, scrape. That sound will follow you for the first few weeks until you learn to tuck your chin, until your body learns a new language, the language of the underground. Your shift begins at 4:45 in the morning. Not 5, not 4:45. For 45 because the mine operates on its own schedule, and the mine does not care about your sleep, your family, your dreams. You will park in a gravel lot that is always cold, even in August, because the mountain breathes cold air out of its mouth all year round. You will go through the bathhouse, strip out of your street clothes, put on your mining clothes. Flame resistant. Everything flame resistant. You will learn very quickly why that matters. You will take your lamp from its charging rack. You will clip your self-rescuer to your belt. Your self-rescuer is a small orange device about the size of a large candy bar. Contains roughly 60 minutes of breathable air in the event that the air around you becomes unbreathable. 60 minutes. You will spend a lot of time thinking about that number. 60. 1 hour. 1 hour between you and suffocation if things go wrong. Keep it on your belt. Never set it down. The man who trained me before I trained you, he set his down once. Just once. We'll get to him later. You will attend pre-shift examination at the lamp house. Your section foreman will go over the previous shift's gas readings. You will look at numbers on a clipboard that represent the invisible, the unsmellable, the thing that can kill an entire section of miners before any one of them finishes a sentence. Methane. CH4. Colorless. Odorless. Tasteless. Comes out of the coal seam constantly, like the mountain is exhaling something it's been holding for 300 million years. Your job is to find it before it finds everyone else. After pre-shift, you will walk to the mine portal. The portal is a concrete opening built into the side of the mountain. There will be a set of heavy steel doors, and when those doors open, you will feel the first breath of the mine hit your face. It's not cold, exactly. It's not warm. It's something else. It's the air of a place that has never seen sunlight. It's wet and it carries the smell of rock and old wood and something metallic, something ancient. Your first time through those doors, your body is going to want to stop. Every animal instinct you have is going to fire at once and tell you to turn around. Your job is to ignore that. Your job is to walk forward anyway. And you will, because you've been hired, because the paperwork is signed, because you told yourself you could handle this. You will ride the man-trip InB. The man-trip is a series of low, flat cars connected together, pulled by a battery locomotive, and it carries the crew from the portal to the active working sections. The trip can last anywhere from 20 minutes to 45 minutes depending on which section you're working. You will sit on a hard metal bench with your lamp clipped to your hard hat, and you will watch the mine go by around you in the narrow beam of your light. The walls are close. The ceiling is close. At certain points, you will have to lean inward to avoid being scraped off the car by a roof bolt or a timber. Other miners will be on the trip with you. Some of them will be talking, telling jokes, playing cards, acting like this is normal. For them, it is. It will take you longer. Some of you, it will never feel normal. Those are the smart ones. When you arrive at your section, the other miners will go to their work areas. The continuous miner, the roof bolters, the shuttle car operators, they will go to their machines and their jobs. You will go somewhere different. You will go to the section foreman, and he will hand you a clipboard and a multigas detector, and he will point you toward a passage in the mine rib, a dark opening that the light of your lamp barely reaches, and he will say, "Run your pre-shift." And that's it. That's your direction. That's your orientation. You will spend your first shift learning by doing. Learning by crawling. Learning by going into places that no machine and no other human being will go until you tell them it's safe. Let's talk about the detector. The detector is about the size and shape of a television remote control. It is yellow, bright yellow, so you can find it in the dark if you drop it. And you will drop it. Everyone drops it. The detector measures 4 gases: methane, carbon monoxide, oxygen, and hydrogen sulfide. There is a small digital readout on the face of the detector that shows you the level of each gas in real time. There is a speaker inside it that will chirp at you when levels rise above certain thresholds. That chirp, when you hear it for the first time in a confined space, your heart does something that doesn't have a medical name. Something between a stop and a scream. The chirp means the air around you is changing. The chirp means something invisible is accumulating. The chirp means you need to make a decision, and you need to make it fast. The legal lower explosive limit for methane is 1% of the air volume. 1%. When methane reaches 1.0%, you are required by federal law and MSHA regulation to immediately withdraw all personnel from the affected area. The methane has to go somewhere, and the ventilation system pulls it out, dilutes it, moves it. But in a poorly ventilated return or a freshly shot entry or a worked out area called a gob, methane can accumulate faster than ventilation can move it. And sometimes the detector will read 0.8, 0.9, and then in the time it takes you to draw one full breath, it will read 1.2. And the alarm goes off. And you are on your belly in a 2-foot tunnel 1,200 feet underground, and the air around you contains enough gas to ignite if anyone so much as creates a spark anywhere in the section. This is your job. This is the thing you will do 6 days a week. The tunnels you crawl in are called returns, crosscuts, and worked out entries. Some of them are active parts of the mine with maintained roof support and decent ventilation. Others are remnants, passages that were worked and then abandoned as the mining face moved on. These are the worst ones. These are the ones where the roof support may be decades old, where the timbers may have taken on water and started to sag, where the roof rock has had years to loosen and settle and find new arrangements that no engineer planned for. You will go into these places with your detector and your lamp and your 60 minutes of emergency air, and you will crawl and you will check and you will note your readings on the clipboard and you will crawl back out. If the readings are acceptable, the entry is cleared. If they're not, you mark it, report it, and ventilation crews go to work. What nobody tells you in any official training, what isn't written in any MSHA guidebook, is the sounds. The mine is never silent. The earth is always moving, always adjusting, always settling. Roof rock cracks and pops, and sometimes you'll be mid-crawl and you'll hear a sound like a rifle shot above your head, and a small shower of coal dust will fall on your neck and your back, and you will freeze and you will wait and you will listen and you will count. You count because if the pop was a warning, the roof will give you another one. A sequence. Pop, crack, groan. That sequence means get out. Get out now. Get out the way you came in, because the roof is talking and it's telling you that the rock above you has decided to make new arrangements and it doesn't care that you're there. The miners call this mountain talk. The mountain is always talking. Your job is to learn its language before it decides to stop talking and start acting. Water. There is always water. The seams that coal forms in are ancient ocean floors and riverbeds, and the water hasn't gone anywhere. It's just been waiting inside the rock. It drips from the roof constantly in some areas, pools in the low spots of entries, turns the floor into a gray-black mud that soaks through your knee pads in the first hour of every shift. You will crawl through this. You will feel it soaking up your sleeves and down the front of your shirt and into your boots. You will crawl through it because the tunnel doesn't get any wider. The roof doesn't get any higher. The mud doesn't get any drier. You go through it because the gas doesn't stop accumulating just because the floor is wet. You go through it because that's the job. That's what you are now. I need you to understand something about darkness. Real darkness. Underground darkness is not the darkness of a room with the lights off, where your eyes eventually adjust and you can make out shapes and shadows. Underground darkness is total. It is complete. It is the darkness that existed before the first star formed, the darkness of the inside of something that has never been touched by light in 300 million years. If your lamp fails, and lamps do fail, you will be in that darkness. You will put your hand in front of your face and see nothing. You will feel the walls with your palms and you will have to decide, do I go forward or do I go back? And you will have to make that decision by memory alone, by the feel of the tunnel, by the angle of the floor. This has happened to every miner who has worked underground for any length of time. Every single one. There is a procedure. Stay calm. Signal with your voice. Use your backup light if you have it. But the procedure was written by people who had never been in total underground darkness, alone with their backs to the world and a dead lamp and a detector chirping at them from their hand. The procedure is words. The darkness is real. And then there's the gob. The gob is what they call the worked-out area behind the mining face. When the continuous miner cuts coal from a seam, the immediate area behind it is eventually abandoned as the face moves on. The roof support is partially removed. The roof is allowed to collapse in a controlled manner. The weight of the mountain comes down on the worked-out area intentionally to relieve pressure on the active sections. The gob is a region of crushed rock and collapsed roof and compressed coal dust and accumulated gas that extends back behind active mining areas for sometimes thousands of feet. The gob breathes. That's the only word for it. The pressure in the mine changes, the atmospheric pressure changes with weather above ground, and the gob exhales. It breathes methane out of its collapsed interior and into the active mine workings. On days when a cold front moves through above your head, 1,200 feet above your head, the barometric pressure drops, and the gob breathes harder. You will learn to watch the weather forecast every morning before your shift. You will learn that a line of thunderstorms moving in from Ohio means your detector is going to be working harder today. You will learn that the mountain above you and the sky above the mountain are connected in ways that nobody thought to explain to you when you took this job. You are required to check certain gob areas directly, not from the entrance. Inside, there are measurement points marked on maps with red X's, specific locations in specific entries where you are required to physically go to take your readings. Some of these points are accessible by walking. Some require crawling. Some require you to lie completely flat on your stomach and pull yourself forward with your hands along a tunnel that is not quite 2 feet from floor to roof, through darkness and mud and water, toward a specific point on a specific map that you've memorized because you can't hold the map and crawl at the same time. You pull yourself forward in the dark on your belly with one hand holding the detector out in front of you. You listen to the detector. You listen to the roof. You listen to your own breathing because in total silence your breathing sounds very loud and very fast, and you become very aware of exactly how much oxygen you're using and exactly how fast your 60 minutes of backup air would run out at this pace if you needed to use it. You reach your measurement point. You hold the detector up. You read the number. You note it on your clipboard. You pull yourself back out. And then you do it again at the next point. There are 14 such points on the pre-shift examination route for the section you'll be working. 14 points. On a good day, when the roof is stable and the gas levels are normal and the mud isn't too deep and your lamp is charged and your body hasn't started talking to you yet, the full examination route takes about 2 hours and 40 minutes. On a bad day, it takes longer. And some days, partway through the route, the detector alarms and you stop everything and you start making decisions and you call out on the radio if you have signal, and sometimes you don't have signal, and then the decisions are just yours. Just you and the detector and the dark and the sound of the mountain talking. Let me tell you about some of the rules. The official rules. The ones written down in the MSHA regulations that every miner is required to know and every mine operator is required to enforce. Rule 1. You are never permitted to operate any electrical equipment in an area where methane exceeds 1%. This includes your cap lamp. This includes your detector. This includes the radio. If methane exceeds 1%, the only electrical device you may operate is your detector to monitor whether it's getting worse. Think about what that means. In a situation where the air becomes dangerous, you are required to turn off your light. You are required to operate in darkness. You are required to feel your way out of a tunnel that you came into in the light. This rule exists because electrical equipment can arc and spark, and a spark in methane above the lower explosive limit can ignite a fire or an explosion that will move through a mine at 2,000 feet per second. The rule is correct. The rule is necessary. The rule means that there is a specific scenario, a legal, described, officially recognized scenario, in which your job requires you to be in total darkness in a confined underground space with explosive gas surrounding you. That's in the manual. That's a planned scenario. That is considered an acceptable operational condition. Rule 2. Examination records must be completed in real time. You cannot complete your examination forms after the fact. You cannot fill them in from memory at the end of your shift. This rule exists because of mines where examiners marked readings they never actually took, where they sat at the entrance of a section and filled in acceptable numbers on a clipboard without ever going into the mine. Mines exploded because of this. Men died because of this. The rule requiring real-time documentation exists because the documentation requirement without enforcement resulted in people deciding that going into the tunnel wasn't worth it, that they could just write down numbers that sounded right. You will understand after your first week why someone made that decision. You will understand it completely. You will not do it because you are better than that, because you understand what's at stake. But you will understand. Rule 3. The examiner must be the first person into any unsupported area. Before any other miner enters a section, before the crew arrives, before work begins, the examiner, you must have already been through that area. The examiner goes first because the examiner is the one with the detector, the one who can tell whether the air is breathable, whether the roof is sound, whether it is safe for humans to be there. You go first into every dangerous place so that everyone who comes after you doesn't have to guess. You are the canary. The job has always been a canary's job. The technology has improved. The principle has not changed. You are the thing that goes into the dangerous place first, and what happens to you tells everyone else what to do next. Rule 4. If you encounter a roof condition that you believe to be unsafe, you are required to mark it, report it, and ensure that no personnel enter the area until it's been examined by a certified mine examiner with authority to make a safety determination. If you mark an area unsafe and your foreman disagrees and orders you to enter anyway, you have the legal right to refuse. This right is protected under federal law. Your job, however, has no union representation in this particular operation, and the foreman you'll be working under has been in this mine for 23 years and has developed opinions about the timidity of new examiners. This is not a rule. This is information. Rule 5. You must never leave your detector behind. If you go into a space, the detector goes with you. If you set it down to make a measurement, you pick it back up before you move. If you lose your detector underground, the shift stops. Everything stops. Everyone stays where they are until the detector is found, because a lost detector means there is an area of the mine without gas monitoring, and an area without gas monitoring is an area where an explosion can happen without warning. The detector goes everywhere you go. It does not leave your hand in confined spaces. This sounds obvious. This sounds like common sense. You will hear a story in about 5 minutes that will explain why this rule has to be explicitly stated. Rule 6. Communication. You must maintain radio contact with the section foreman at intervals no greater than 30 minutes while conducting your examination. If you miss a check-in, the foreman will send someone to find you. If that someone can't find you, MSHA is notified. If MSHA is notified, there is a rescue protocol that begins. This protocol involves the mine rescue team and a second set of people going into the mine to find the first person who went in. 2 people going into a dangerous place to find the person who went in first to determine whether it was safe for people to go in. This is the redundancy. This is the net. 30-minute check-ins. Your radio will sometimes not reach the foreman from certain locations in the mine. This is called a dead zone. You should know where the dead zones are before you go into them so that you check in immediately before entering and immediately after exiting. If you don't know where the dead zones are yet, you will find out the same way every examiner finds out. You'll try to call and you'll get nothing back. Just static. Just the sound of the rock between you and everyone else. I want you to picture something for a moment. I want you to stop where you are and picture yourself on your hands and knees in a tunnel that is 24 inches from floor to roof. The walls are coal and sandstone and they're black and wet and close. The floor is muddy and cold and your knee pads are already soaked through. Your lamp is throwing a white beam forward into the tunnel and the tunnel runs straight for about 30 feet and then turns and you can't see past the turn. Your detector is in your right hand, extended forward. The readout says 0.4. Normal. Below threshold. You're moving forward, crawling, your knees and your hands taking turns in the mud. The roof above you is close enough that if you tilt your head up too fast, you'll hit your hard hat on it. You get to the turn and you turn and the tunnel keeps going another 40 feet and then another turn. The reading is 0.5 now. Still below threshold, still legal, still acceptable, but higher than it was 30 seconds ago. You keep crawling. You have 8 more measurement points to check after this one. You are approximately 400 feet from the nearest point where another human being is standing. Your radio has been showing 1 bar of signal for the last 10 minutes, which might be enough to reach the foreman and might not. The detector reads 0.6. You keep moving, and then the lamp goes out. It just goes out. Mid-crawl. No flicker, no warning. The battery has drained, or there's a connection fault, or the lamp has simply decided that this is the moment. The light is there, and then it is not there, and you are in the tunnel in total darkness, and you are on your hands and knees, and you cannot see your hands. You cannot see the walls 6 inches from your shoulders. You cannot see the roof 6 inches above your back. You cannot see the detector in your hand, but you can hear it, and it reads in the dark by memory 0.6. And you make a decision. You stop. You don't move. You think. You reach for the radio with your left hand and you press the talk button and you say foreman, lamp failure, section 8 return, and you wait. And the radio gives you static. 1 bar wasn't enough. And you are in the dark. This is the job you've been hired for. Are you still with me? Because I need you to be still with me. Because what I've told you so far is the normal version. The expected version. The version that happens dozens of times every year in active coal mines across this country. The version that miners deal with and manage and walk back from because they've been trained and they know the procedures and they're professionals. What I need to tell you now is the other version. The version that happened once in this mine in Section 12 2 years before you were hired. His name was Dale Pruitt. Dale Pruitt was 41 years old when he died. He had worked the Blackwater No. 9 for 14 years, the last 7 as a certified mine examiner. He knew that mine the way you know the inside of your own house. He could navigate the Section 12 returns in the dark because he had navigated them in the dark more than once when lamps failed, when situations developed. He was considered by everyone on the crew to be the best examiner working that shift. His forms were meticulous. His readings were accurate. He never missed a check-in. He was, by every standard that the industry uses, an exceptional coal mine gas examiner. Dale Pruitt died on a Tuesday in November. The day started normally. Pre-shift was at 4:45. Dale signed out his equipment. He drank his coffee from a thermos in the parking lot the way he did every morning. He rode the man-trip InB with the Section 12 crew, and when everyone else went to their machines, Dale went to the Section 12 return entrance with his clipboard and his detector, and he went to work. The first 6 measurement points on his examination route were unremarkable. The readings were normal. His check-ins with the foreman were on time. At 6:42 in the morning, he checked in from point 6 and reported all clear. The foreman noted it in the dispatch log. 6:42. All clear. The last entry. At 7:13, Dale missed his 7:10 check-in. The foreman called out on the radio 3 times and got no response. At 7:18, per protocol, he sent a miner to the Section 12 return entrance to check. The miner found nothing at the entrance. The miner called back. The foreman called MSHA at 7:21. The mine rescue team entered Section 12 at 8:15. They were equipped with self-contained breathing apparatus, which means they carried their own air supply rather than relying on mine ventilation, which is standard for rescue operations in potentially gassed-out areas. They followed Dale's examination route from point 6 forward. They found him at point 9. Point 9 on the Section 12 examination route is the deepest InB point, the farthest from the entrance, the point that requires the longest crawl through the most confined passage on the route. It's a small chamber, barely enough room to turn around, where a worked-out crosscut meets an old return entry. The roof in that area is supported by a combination of standing timber and roof bolts installed during an earlier era of the mine's operation. The timbers were original to a 1987 expansion. 37 years old. Nobody had flagged them as a concern on any inspection. They looked solid. They had tested solid on the last examination. They weren't solid. The rescue team found Dale Pruitt on his back in the crawl leading to point 9. He was alive. Unconscious, but alive. He had been overcome by gas. The rescue team's instruments showed methane at 4.8% at the measurement point, which is well above the lower explosive limit and well into the dangerous accumulation zone, and carbon monoxide at over 100 parts per million, which at those levels in a confined space without adequate ventilation will cause loss of consciousness in minutes. The ventilation in the section 12.9 area had failed silently. A brattice cloth that directed airflow into that corner of the mine had been disturbed, likely by a small roof fall, and without fresh air reaching the point 9 chamber, gases from the gob had filled it from below without triggering any surface alarm. Dale had crawled into a room full of poisoned air, and by the time his detector alarmed, there was not enough oxygen in his blood to process the alarm and react. He was alive when they found him. I want you to understand that clearly. He was breathing. His pulse was present. The rescue team administered oxygen on site and began extraction. The crawl out of the section 12.9 area is approximately 60 feet of 2-foot tunnel, and the rescue team had to drag Dale on a specialized low-profile rescue stretcher while maintaining their own air supply, and the extraction took 41 minutes. 41 minutes of controlled, careful movement through a tunnel that you now know the dimensions of. 60 feet. 41 minutes. Dale Pruitt reached the surface at 9:57 in the morning. He was transported by helicopter to a regional trauma center. He remained unconscious for 4 days. He woke up on a Saturday. The doctors described his recovery as remarkable. They used that word specifically. Remarkable. Dale Pruitt was discharged from the hospital 3 weeks later. His physical recovery was complete. His oxygen levels normalized. His lung function returned to baseline. By every medical measure, he was fine. He was alive. He was whole. He never went back underground. Not because the mine wouldn't take him. They would have. The mine superintendent called him personally 3 weeks after his discharge and told him his job was his if he wanted it. They needed good examiners. They always need good examiners. Dale thanked him and said he'd think about it, and he never called back. What Dale told his wife, what she told someone who eventually the story reached me, is that during the 4 days he was unconscious in the hospital, he wasn't unconscious the way you'd imagine. He wasn't in a blank darkness. He was somewhere. He was somewhere he described as the mine, but wrong. The mine the way a dream makes a place familiar and wrong at the same time. The tunnels were the same shape, but they went in directions that weren't possible. The measurement points were all there, numbered correctly on the map, but when he crawled to them, the chambers were wrong sizes, wrong shapes, full of things he couldn't see clearly in his lamp's beam. And at each point, the detector read a number he didn't understand. Not a methane level. Not parts per million of anything real. Just a number. A different number at each point. And at point 9, the last point, the farthest in, the number was 0. Not 0 as in safe. 0 as in the detector was no longer measuring anything that exists. 0 as in the instrument had reached the limit of what it could measure and given up. And at point 9, in the wrong version of the mine, there was someone else. Someone already there. Facing away from him in the narrow chamber. Someone in mining clothes with a hard hat and a lamp, crouched over their own detector, taking their own reading. And Dale called out and the figure didn't respond. and Dale crawled closer and reached out to touch the figure on the shoulder, and the figure turned around and it was Dale. It was his own face looking back at him from under a hard hat with a lamp, pale and still and expressionless, holding a detector that read 0. And the other Dale looked at him and opened his mouth, and no sound came out, but Dale understood what it was saying, and the understanding woke him up. He woke up in a hospital room on a Saturday morning, and he never told anyone what the other Dale had been trying to say. He told his wife he couldn't remember. He told the mind psychologist he couldn't remember. He might have been telling the truth. He might not have been. 3 months after his discharge, Dale Pruitt moved his family to a town in eastern Tennessee. He works at a hardware store now. He doesn't talk about the mine. His former coworkers say that if you ask him about it, about the 14 years, about the night rescue, about what happened at Point 9, he'll smile at you the way a person smiles when they're keeping something very carefully where it belongs, which is behind a door that is never going to open again. He seems, by all accounts, happy. He seems fine. He sells paint and lumber and seems fine. The Section 12 examination route still exists. The Point 9 chamber was re-examined after the incident. The ventilation issue was identified and corrected. The timbers were replaced. The route was recertified. The mine continues to operate. Someone has to check Point 9 on every pre-shift examination. That someone is now you. Let's go back to the job. Let's go back to what your actual days look like, what the weeks turn into, what the months feel like when you've been doing this long enough that it starts to feel like something other than just a job. Because there's a phase that every underground examiner goes through, somewhere between month 3 and month 6, where something changes. Where the fear, the constant low-level fear that you started with, the fear that every new person brings underground with them, starts to quiet. Not disappear, never disappear, but quiet. And in the quiet, you start to notice things you didn't notice when the fear was loud. You start to notice the sounds differently. Not just mountain talk, not just the standard pops and cracks that training covers, but subtler things. The way the ventilation changes sound as it moves through different passages. The way water dripping from a roof sounds different when the roof is stressed versus when it's stable, a difference in pitch, in rhythm, in the way the drops hit the floor. The way coal gas, odorless, colorless, completely imperceptible to human senses, somehow still makes the air feel different in your lungs. Some examiners will tell you they can feel high methane before the detector alarms. They will say this seriously and without embarrassment because after enough time underground, after enough shifts spent with nothing between you and the invisible but a yellow device in your hand, you start to develop something that isn't quite a new sense but is adjacent to one. An animal awareness of the air quality around you. The kind of thing that prey animals have. The kind of thing that your ancestors had before there were houses and fire and safety, and before anyone decided that digging into the earth for ancient carbon was a reasonable thing for humans to do. You will also start to dream about it. This is universal. Every miner dreams about the mine. Not always nightmares, not always bad, just the mine showing up in your sleep the way work sometimes does. The way the brain processes and files the day's experiences. But for examiners specifically, for people who spend their working hours alone in confined darkness, the dreams have a particular quality. They tend to be very quiet dreams, very still, very dark, the kind of dream where you're moving through a familiar space but something is slightly wrong and you can't identify what it is. And the wrongness keeps building behind the dream like pressure behind a door. Like the gob breathing. Like the mountain adjusting. Some examiners keep dream logs. This isn't official. This isn't recommended or discouraged. Some people just find that writing down the mind dreams helps them stay manageable. Stay something that happens in sleep and not something that follows you into your waking shift. If you start keeping a log, you'll notice patterns. The same locations appearing again and again. Not always correctly. Not always with the right dimensions or the right distances. The mine as your brain has reconstructed it, which is slightly different from the mine as it actually is, which is slightly different from the mine as it appears on the maps, and which is therefore significantly different from what the mine actually is in 3 dimensions in the dark when the lamp fails. Roof falls. I haven't talked enough about roof falls. I've mentioned them as sounds, as risk factors for ventilation disruption, but I haven't told you what they actually are, what they look like and sound like in the moment. A roof fall in a confined mine entry sounds, from a distance, like a truck accident. A sudden, massive concussive sound followed by a rumble followed by silence. The silence after a roof fall is significant. It is different from the normal silence of the mine, which is never quite total. After a fall, the dust settles and there is a moment where the mine seems to hold its breath, where the pressure equalizes and there is no sound. And then the mine breathes again. Water starts dripping again. Ventilation hums again. The normal sounds return. But the normal sounds return to a mine that is now different than it was 3 seconds ago. There is now a place underground where the geometry has changed, where the roof came down and the floor came up and the space between them collapsed into a wall of broken rock. If you are on the wrong side of a roof fall, between the fall and the face of the mine with no way back out, there is a procedure for that too. It's called a refuge chamber situation, and it involves activating your self-rescuer and moving to the nearest refuge chamber, which is a pressurized chamber stocked with oxygen and food and water designed to support a group of miners for up to 96 hours while rescue operations proceed from outside. There are 2 refuge chambers in your section. You should know where they are. You should know exactly where they are, the number of steps from each measurement point to the nearest chamber, because if the roof falls between you and daylight, you will not have time to look at a map. Here is the thing about refuge chambers that nobody mentions in the orientation. The refuge chamber is a box, a metal box, roughly the size of a large walk-in closet, bolted to the floor of the mine entry. Inside, there are seats along the walls, a chemical toilet, stores of water and food, oxygen supplies, a communication system, and a carbon monoxide scrubber. The chamber is rated for 96 hours. 96 hours is 4 days. 4 days in a metal box underground while people on the surface try to drill down to you or breach the fall from the mine side to get you out. You will be in that box with however many people were in your section when the fall happened. You will hear the mine around you. You will hear it working, settling, adjusting to the new geometry. You will have light inside the chamber. That helps. That helps a lot. But the sound doesn't stop. The mountain doesn't care that you're in a box. The mountain is adjusting and you will hear it adjusting and you will have nothing to do but sit and wait and count hours. This has never happened to anyone in your section. I want to be clear about that. The Blackwater number 9 has had a safety record that, while imperfect, as no mine's record can be perfect, has been significantly better than the industry average. The refuge chambers have never been occupied. They are checked and restocked quarterly. They are there as a contingency, as a net, as the mine's acknowledgement that the mountain sometimes does things that weren't planned and that the humans inside it need somewhere to go. But Dale Pruitt was in a mine with a good safety record when he crawled into the point 9 chamber and breathed air that his detector should have warned him about earlier. The ventilation disruption was undetected. It was the product of a small, unnoticed roof fall in a worked-out area that shifted a brattice cloth by approximately 18 inches. 18 inches of fabric, redirecting airflow by a few degrees, accumulating gas in one chamber over the course of a shift, resulting in 4 days of unconsciousness, and a man who now sells paint in Tennessee and has never told anyone what the other version of himself was trying to say at point 9 in the dream mine where the detector read 0. Small things. Everything underground is about small things. 18 inches of fabric. One missed check-in. One old timber that looks solid and isn't. One lamp that fails between measurement points. Small things that the surface world would absorb and correct and move on from without consequence, made enormous by the conditions underground. By the darkness and the confined space and the gas you cannot smell and the roof above you that is always negotiating with gravity. By the fact that nothing up here, none of the problems of daily life, none of the frustrations and inconveniences of existing above ground in daylight with breathable air all around you, none of it operates on the same scale as problems underground. Up here, small things stay small. Down there, small things kill you, or they don't. And the difference between those outcomes is sometimes 18 inches of displaced fabric, and sometimes it's something you can't identify even afterwards, some variable that nobody measured, some condition that wasn't on the clipboard. There's one more thing I want to tell you before we talk about your first actual shift. There's a practice that the older examiners have. Not all of them, not officially, but enough of them that it exists as a tradition, as a ritual, as something passed from one examiner to the next the way certain kinds of knowledge get passed. Not in training and not in manuals, but in the quiet conversation between the person who's been somewhere and the person who's about to go. The practice is this. Before you begin your examination route each shift, before you enter the first return and start your crawl, you stop. You stand at the entrance to the mine's working section, at the point where the maintained entry gives way to the return system, where the light is adequate and the other miners are still visible behind you, and ahead of you there is darkness. And you stop, and you say something, out loud, not loudly, just at speaking volume. You say it to the mine. You say it to the dark ahead of you. You tell the mine you're coming in. You tell it what you're there to do, which is check the air, protect the crew, do your job. You tell it you'll be respectful of its spaces. You tell it you'll be careful. And then you go in. It sounds like superstition. It is superstition, technically, in the same way that knocking on wood is superstition, in the same way that any ritual is superstition when you strip away the meaning and leave only the action. But the older examiners who do it, who've done it for 20 years or 30 years, they don't call it superstition. They call it professional courtesy. They say the mine is a place, and places have a kind of awareness that isn't supernatural but isn't nothing either. That a space where thousands of people have worked and some have died, where the rock holds the history of every person who ever moved through it, where the darkness has been shaped by human presence for decades, where the sounds carry information about events that happened before you were born, that such a place deserves to be acknowledged before you enter it. That the practice of stopping and speaking isn't magic. It's just manners. It's just the recognition that you are going somewhere that demands a different kind of attention, a different kind of presence than anywhere else you have ever been. I started doing it after Dale's story reached me, and after I had thought about it for a while. I started stopping at the return entrance before my route and saying what I was there to do. I don't know if the mine can hear. I don't believe in anything supernatural, and I'm not starting now. But the stopping helps. The speaking out loud helps. It puts you in a different mental state than you were in when you were riding the man trip and drinking cold coffee from a thermos and thinking about whatever you think about on the way in. Puts you in the mind state. It makes you present to where you actually are, which is underground, which is in the dark, which is in a place where small things are enormous and the margin between fine and not fine is sometimes 18 inches of fabric. You have been hired to be present underground. That is the actual job. Holding the detector, noting the readings, those are procedures. The actual job is presence. The actual job is being in a confined dark space and being more awake than you have ever been above ground, more alert, more attentive to every signal and sound and sensation, and making correct decisions quickly with incomplete information. The actual job is being a human being in a place that was never designed for human beings, in conditions that evolution never prepared you for, and doing it reliably and safely shift after shift after shift. The actual job is doing what Dale did right up until the moment when a displaced cloth and a gob that breathed at the wrong time created a situation where doing everything right wasn't enough. And then doing it again the next day, and the day after that. Your first shift begins tomorrow. For 45 in the parking lot. Bring your thermos if you drink coffee. The bathhouse will have your flame-resistant clothes waiting. Your lamp is on the number 14 rack, charged and ready. Your detector has been calibrated. Your clipboard has tomorrow's route map on it. Section 12, 14 points. Point 9 is the deepest. You know that now. You know the tunnel that gets you there, 24 inches from floor to roof, 60 feet long, turning left at the end. You know the chamber. You know what happened there. You know what Dale saw in the 4 days he was unconscious, and you know what you don't know, which is what the other Dale was trying to say. Go home tonight. Sleep if you can. Set 2 alarms. The mine will still be there when you wake up. The mountain will still be 1,200 feet of rock and ancient ocean floor waiting to tell you something in a language you're just starting to learn. The gob will be breathing tonight, right now, while you're listening to this, moving methane through worked-out passages in the dark below the surface of the earth. The detector on rack 14 is charged and waiting. The mud in the Section 12 returns is the same mud that it's always been. Point 9 is ready for you. And somewhere in eastern Tennessee, in a town you don't know the name of, a man who used to be you sells paint and doesn't talk about it and keeps a door closed that isn't going to open and seems by all accounts happy. Seems fine. You'll be fine too. Probably. Welcome to your first day underground. See you at 4:45.